You used to think pregnancy would feel like magic. You imagined it as a moment of revelation, bathed in golden light, tears welling up as you cradle the test in trembling hands. You'd always assumed that when it happened, something ancient and maternal would awaken in you, a deep knowing, a primal joy, a seismic shift in your soul. But instead, it's quiet. Not peaceful quiet, more like the eerie stillness before a storm. You stare at the second pink line, not with elation, but with a disorienting sense of detachment. You're pregnant. You're supposed to be happy, overjoyed, euphoric. But you're not. And that simple fact sits in your chest like a stone no one else can see. What does it mean when the biggest moment of your life doesn't feel big at all? There's a cruel kind of irony in how the world responds to your ambivalence. People rush to congratulate you, beaming, bubbling over with excitement. They tell you how blessed you are, how miraculous it is, as if repeating those words enough times will flick some switch inside you, as if the right Instagram filter can manufacture meaning where you feel only numbness. But what if you're not broken? What if the real problem isn't your lack of joy, but the expectation that you should feel nothing else? Imagine walking into a room where everyone is screaming with joy, and you're the only one who wants to sit in silence. That's what early pregnancy can feel like when your emotional truth doesn't match the cultural script. It's not that you aren't aware of the miracle. You are. You just experience it with a different texture, less confetti, more confusion. And yet, from the outside, pregnancy is treated like a monolith, a universally joyful experience, a time of glowing, a time when every woman supposedly radiates purpose and love and maternal instinct. No one tells you that for many, pregnancy is a deeply complex terrain, one that cracks open not just your body, but your identity, your fears, your unresolved grief, your hidden doubts. Why don't we talk about that? Why is it so taboo to say, I'm not excited about this right now? Think about that. You can grieve a breakup, rage over a job loss, spiral over turning 30, but question your enthusiasm about becoming a mother, and suddenly you're treated like a walking red flag. You're expected to feel grateful, period. Anything else feels like betrayal. But what if ambivalence is not the opposite of love? What if it's part of the story? Because here's the truth. Ambivalence is often the birthplace of transformation. It's a sign that your psyche is reorganizing itself around something massive, irreversible, and real. Pregnancy isn't just about a baby, it's about death, too. The death of the version of you who didn't carry this responsibility. The death of autonomy as you knew it. The death of the illusion that life would always be linear, predictable, under control. You don't hear that in baby books. You don't hear that in the pastel-colored posts and Pinterest-perfect announcements. But in the hidden corners of women's minds, it lives and breathes. In therapy rooms, in late-night text threads between close friends, in the pages of anonymous blogs written by mothers who never meant to become mothers, but did and loved their children fiercely anyway. This is the part no one prepares you for. How disorienting it can be to hold two conflicting truths at once. I want this baby. I don't feel excited. Both can be true. You can love the idea of becoming a mother and still grieve what it's taking from you. You can plan for the future and still feel lost in the present. You can know that this child will change your life and still feel terrified that you won't survive the change. You are not defective for feeling this way. You are not ungrateful. You are not less of a woman. You are simply human. And yet, society has weaponized joy. It's made it mandatory. It's told you that if you don't feel the right emotion at the right time, something must be wrong with you. But what if the real harm lies in this emotional fascism? What if the problem isn't your reaction, but the suffocating demand for a performance? Maybe that's why the silence around this topic feels so deafening. Not because no one else feels this way, but because everyone is afraid to be the first to say it out loud. So here you are, holding a truth no one warned you about. Not sadness, not depression, not rejection of the pregnancy, just a lack of excitement, a numbness, a quiet kind of unrest. It feels like a secret, but it shouldn't have to be. Because here's what's coming, the part most people skip when they rush to paint pregnancy as the happiest time of your life, the deeper truth behind why it's okay to not feel excited, and what that ambivalence might actually be telling you. Shall we go there? Let's step into the space beneath the silence. You've admitted, even if only to yourself, that you don't feel excited about being pregnant. That sentence alone carries so much weight it feels radioactive. not because it's inherently dangerous, but because society has trained us to treat it like it is. Like a warning sign, like a defect in your maternal wiring. But what if that feeling isn't a flaw? What if it's a mirror? Because here's the psychological paradox that most people never explore. Ambivalence isn't a lack of care, it's a surplus of it. When something matters deeply, your emotions around it tend to multiply, not simplify. They contradict each other. They pile on in layers. Joy gets tangled with fear. Hope weaves itself through loss. Anticipation coexists with dread. This isn't dysfunction, it's evolution. Your mind, your body, your very sense of self, everything is being asked to reconfigure, to dismantle the scaffolding of the person you've been and reconstruct a version of you that includes someone else. Someone who will rely on you not just to survive, but to make sense of the world. Of course you feel unsettled. This is psychological architecture. You are quite literally rewiring the way you think, relate, and exist. No one talks about this part. No one tells you that identity loss can begin before the baby is even born, that the person you've spent years becoming, your ambitions, your solitude, your freedom, your quiet rituals, your sleep, your career, your unspoken dreams, all of that suddenly feels like it's being auctioned off to a future you don't fully recognize yet. And yet, you're expected to smile, to decorate a nursery, to pick out names, to feel ready. But how do you feel ready for a transformation you can't control? Here's where psychology can be your ally, not your judge. In the world of maternal mental health, there's a term, matrescence. Think of it as the emotional and psychological version of adolescence, but instead of becoming an adult, you're becoming a mother. It's turbulent, identity shifting, hormonal, often isolating, and like adolescence, it's not a linear process. You don't just find out you're pregnant and suddenly evolve into a glowing, all-knowing maternal goddess. You wrestle with it. You question it. You go through phases of denial, rebellion, mourning, acceptance, and everything in between, sometimes in the same afternoon, and all of that is normal. Matrescence includes grief. That's not something you'll read in the glossy brochures at the OB/GYN's office, but it's real. You might be grieving the spontaneity of your relationship, the freedom to travel, to be impulsive, to stay up late and sleep in, the simplicity of making decisions without considering how they'll ripple through a tiny, dependent life form growing inside you. And yet, in grieving these things, you're not betraying your unborn child, you're honoring the truth. You're saying, this matters to me, and I'm letting it go. That kind of emotional honesty is exactly what makes you capable of being a good parent. Not the fake smile, not the performative joy, but the willingness to walk through hard emotional terrain for the sake of something larger than yourself. But let's go deeper. What if part of your ambivalence is a survival instinct? Your brain is exquisitely wired to protect you, and pregnancy, for all its beauty, is also laced with risk. Physical risk, emotional risk, social risk. It changes your relationship with your body, your partner, your family, your work, your sense of safety. Even your mortality becomes more vivid. Something about carrying life brings death closer into focus. So when you feel emotionally flat, or detached, or even repelled by the idea of pregnancy, it might not be because you lack love. It might be because your mind is instinctively bracing for the unknown. It's keeping you emotionally tethered to the ground while your entire life begins to lift off into the clouds. This isn't cynicism, it's strategy. A kind of emotional shock absorption that softens the blow of massive change. It's your psyche saying, we don't know what this is yet. Let's hold back until we do. There is wisdom in that. There is protection in that. And it deserves to be treated not with shame, but with compassion. Because even if you wanted to feel excited, you might not be able to. Excitement, neurologically speaking, is a high arousal state. It requires dopamine. It requires mental clarity, spaciousness, and a sense of agency. But pregnancy, especially unplanned, complicated, or high-risk pregnancy, often comes with anxiety, medical uncertainty, hormonal chaos, and identity fragmentation. Those are not the conditions under which excitement naturally thrives. It doesn't mean you're failing. It means your nervous system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, navigate change. And yet, most conversations about pregnancy focus solely on the body, what to eat, what to avoid, what symptoms to expect. The psychological blueprint gets ignored. So when you don't feel what you're supposed to feel, you assume the problem must be internal. that you are the glitch in the system. But the truth is, the system never accounted for your full humanity, for your contradictions, your inner conflict, your quiet resistance, your wild, non-linear emotions. So let's say it clearly, out loud, and without apology. Not feeling excited about pregnancy does not mean you don't care. It means you're awake to the magnitude of what's happening. It means you are emotionally sober enough to see the complexity where others only see celebration. It means you are feeling everything, not just the acceptable parts. And in a world that demands women smile while they bleed, that alone is an act of radical honesty. But what happens next? What do you do with this emotional ambiguity? How do you carry it forward, not as a secret burden, but as a meaningful part of your unfolding story? That's what we'll unravel next. When you're ready, you've stood in the fog of confusion. You've sat with the unspoken truth that you're pregnant and not excited. You've stared down the weight of your own ambivalence, not as an enemy, but as a signal. A signpost pointing somewhere deeper, somewhere more honest. So now the question becomes, what do you do with it? Not just how to cope or fix it, but how to make meaning of it. Because this isn't just a phase to endure. This emotional unrest is an initiation. It's trying to pull you toward a deeper version of yourself, one that society rarely acknowledges, let alone prepares you for. But if you lean in, if you listen to it, something astonishing happens. The numbness. It starts to speak. It says, I'm not here to rob you of joy. I'm here to protect you from illusion. It says, you are not here to play a role. You are here to become. You see, the most dangerous thing about the cultural mythology of pregnancy isn't that it paints a rosy picture, it's that it offers only one path, one emotion, one definition of womanhood, and it leaves no room for deviation, no space for mystery, rage, ambivalence, or complexity. It asks you to surrender your inner landscape and replace it with a script. But you're not a character in a fairy tale. You're a real, living human being undergoing a transformation as ancient as the earth and as unique as your fingerprint. Of course it doesn't look or feel the way you expected. That's because you're in the middle of becoming someone else. And becoming is never pretty. It's rarely Instagrammable. It's messy and disorienting and painful. It demands that you shed skin you've grown used to, that you walk through doorways with no guarantees of what's on the other side. That's not dysfunction. That's metamorphosis. Think of a caterpillar inside a chrysalis. It doesn't sprout wings and float off into the sky. It disintegrates. Its entire body melts into biological soup before reorganizing itself into something unrecognizable. For a time, it's neither what it was nor what it's going to be. That's what this moment is for you. You are not who you were before this pregnancy, but you are also not yet the mother you will be. You are in between, undefined. And it's in that very in-betweenness that true growth takes root. So when the excitement doesn't come, don't rush to replace it. Don't reach for forced joy just to reassure the people around you. Instead, ask, what else is here? Is there fear? Name it. Is there resentment? Let it breathe. Is there grief, guilt, disbelief, even anger? These aren't moral failings. They're invitations. Each one is a doorway to a part of you that needs to be seen before you can move forward with integrity. This is not indulgence. It's emotional housekeeping, because the parts of you that you silence now, those unmet needs, unprocessed losses, unmetabolized fears, they don't disappear once the baby is born. They deepen. They echo. They return in the dark hours when the house is quiet and your identity feels like it belongs to someone else. But if you meet them now, if you let yourself sit in the discomfort of not feeling what you're supposed to feel, something else begins to emerge, self-trust. And that's more powerful than excitement. Excitement is a spark. It's fleeting. It comes and goes, and it's often performative. But self-trust, that's a foundation. That's what carries you through the nights when your nipples bleed, when your partner doesn't understand, when your baby won't stop crying and you haven't slept in days and you wonder if your old life is gone forever. Self-trust is what lets you whisper, I don't feel okay right now, but I can handle this. It lets you mother yourself so you can eventually mother someone else. And here's the paradox. Sometimes, the absence of excitement isn't an absence of connection. It's a sign that you're trying to connect in a different way. One that doesn't rely on cliches or pink balloons or picture-perfect pregnancy announcements. One that begins in truth. Your truth. Maybe your connection to your baby doesn't begin with joy. Maybe it begins with silence. or confusion, or curiosity. Maybe it begins not with celebration, but with a question: who will we become, together? And isn't that more honest? More sacred? Pregnancy isn't a party, it's a rite of passage, and rites of passage require a descent, a breaking, a reckoning. That's what you're in. You are in the underworld of self, the place where you shed the girl you used to be and start learning how to stand as something wilder, wiser, and more whole. So here's your permission slip. You don't have to love every moment. You don't have to feel excited. You don't have to glow. You just have to stay with yourself, to remain emotionally honest, even when the world tries to narrate your story for you, even when the people who love you look confused by your lack of enthusiasm, even when the voice in your head says, "What kind of mother feels this way?" Because the answer is a real one who doesn't fake the journey, one who doesn't gloss over the hard truths, one who understands that authenticity will serve her far better than forced joy ever could. And maybe, one day, not today, maybe not even by the time you give birth, you'll feel something else. A quiet tug, a softening, a flicker of wonder, not because you forced yourself into excitement, but because you gave yourself the space to arrive at love in your own time. And when it comes, it won't be hollow. It will be the kind of love that's been tested by doubt, shaped by truth. It will be real. And that is enough.